She is the most beautiful woman in the empire, but her gambling father loses her to a billionaire. Captain Bastian, the military hero of the empire, is dragged to a gambling house by his comrades after finishing a victory banquet. Suddenly, they're drawn to the sound of arguing from a corner. The man called the beggar Duke, Dissen, is kneeling on the ground pleading, "Let me in! I still have stakes to bet. Everyone is aware of how beautiful my daughter is. I'll bet my daughter, so let me have one more round. Just one more." Erich, who's with Bastian, interrupts him. "Are you sure you want to use your daughter as a bet?" Dissen hesitates for a moment. Then, with inexplicable confidence, he believes he'll win the next round. "Of course, my daughter is the most beautiful woman in the empire. She must be the most valuable stake." Getting his assurance, Erich suddenly chuckles, his words carrying mockery. "I think this round is getting more interesting. What do you think?" They then head to the VIP room and take their seats. Bastian draws his cards first and announces the official start of the gambling round. But there's only one winner at the gambling table. As other faces gradually turn dark, Bastian reveals his final hole card, the ace of spades. The outcome is already decided. Dissen can't believe he's lost again. The onlookers around start teasing. It seems the beggar Duke has a son-in-law. Seeing Dissen's pathetic appearance, Bastian really can't stand it anymore. He gets up to leave, but Lucas reminds him to quickly take his bet. Hearing this, Dissen trembles and urgently grabs Bastian. "Please, give me just one more chance! One more time, and I'm sure I'll." But Bastian looks at him with cold eyes full of anger and threat, frightening Dissen into silence. He stands there frozen in fear. Bastian shakes him off. Knowing his temper, Lucas signals the guard to bring the bet Dissen mentioned. But Dissen tries to go back on his word. He staggers to his feet. "Do you know who I am? You'll pay dearly for treating me like this. If the Emperor hears that all of you touched my daughter recklessly, you'll never be safe. Because my daughter has the blood of the imperial family, which is so valuable." Meanwhile, on the other side, Odette has no idea what her father has done. After comforting her sister Tira to sleep, she plans to organize the daily necessities list. They are having more and more difficult days, and living in a worse condition because of their father's debts. They don't have subsistence problems thanks to the imperial pension. Odette's deceased mother was once the most beloved eldest princess of this nation's previous emperor, Helene, who was supposed to marry a prince from another country. But one night, just 3 months before the wedding, she eloped with the fallen Duke Dissen. This scandal shocked the entire empire. The emperor not only declared his relationship with her mother severed, but also stripped her of all status and property as a princess, and banished them. They instantly became wanderers poorer than commoners. But despite this, Mother believed they would return to the royal family someday. So to prepare for that day, she carefully taught Odette all noble etiquette and knowledge, and told not to lose her dignity under any circumstance. Though Odette mastered these skills and knowledge, her mother never got her wish fulfilled until death. At this moment, urgent knocking interrupts her thoughts. A guard in the gambling house tells her that her father owes huge debts, and asks her to come with him. Though shocked inside, Odette still tries to stay calm. Before leaving, she doesn't forget to dress herself properly, because her mother always taught her that one must never lose their dignity under any circumstance. Though some might say it's meaningless, she doesn't want to erase traces of the past, since this is the last inheritance her mother left her. At this time in a gambling house, Dissen finally panics, pleading for them to spare his daughter. "My daughter is with the blood of the imperial family. If you really bring her here, you'll get into trouble." However, his words have no effect at all, because he was the one who used his daughter as a bet in the first place. At this moment, Lucas can't resist teasing Bastian about how he's feeling ahead of meeting the emperor's niece. Bastian is dismissive. "Do you really believe what he says?" Though Erich and Lucas are skeptical of what Dissen says, it doesn't stop them from being interested in his daughter's beauty. Bastian only feels troublesome. The next moment, the door opens, and the guard reports that he has brought Odette. Everyone looks expectantly toward the door. Odette, wearing a black veil, slowly appears, walks in gracefully, and finally stops before them. "Please tell me, how much money does my father owe?" Her appearance freezes the atmosphere for a moment. Erich steps forward to explain. "You seem to misunderstand. We called you here not to have you pay gambling debts." Hearing his words, Odette turns around decisively to leave. "In that case, I have no need to stay here. I'll be taking my father back now." However, Erich speaks again to stop her. "That's a problem. Even if your father can go back, you have to stay, because your father used you as a bet. And that man over there is the one who won against your father. Now, do you understand the situation?" Odette instantly changes his expression. She looks toward her father. Dissen hangs his head and kneels on the ground, constantly apologizing. He thought he could win big this time. Odette unconsciously clenches her fists. She secretly glances at the winner's clothing. From his gorgeous uniform in white, she has already guessed they are Navy officers, and should all be from the upper class. She's at a loss for a moment, but a direct escape clearly won't work. In that case, she can only use that method. She resolutely turns around. background, strides to Bastian's front, and questions him. Are you not ashamed? As a soldier to guard the Empire to partake in this sort of gamble, I'm sure you are very well aware that contracts made to buy can't be established. Bastian finds it ridiculous that she's talking about law and morality in such a place. Odette still shows no weakness, since when is a soldier's honor and dignity restricted to certain times and places? At this moment, Bastian suddenly feels admiration for the woman in front of him who can still stay rational in a disadvantageous situation, and even fight back. Then, Odette shifts into a sincere attitude. Please forgive my father's mistake. I will pay back the money he owes. Bastian looks down with contempt and refuses her request. I don't want your money, and now I should be the one making conditions. Since I won you, though I'm not interested in your money or you, I can't just unilaterally suffer a loss, so take off your veil and let me see your face. Then this matter ends here. His dominance makes Odette instinctively step back. Lucas and Eric on the side are still cheering. Bastian just wants to quickly end this troublesome matter. Odette asks uncertainly, will you really keep your promise? Bastian smiles in response, of course, but inwardly he maliciously judges that Odette talking about honor, dignity, and honesty in a gambling house is too self-righteous. After a long while, Odette finally decides to take off her hat, and she once again confirms with Bastian that he must keep their agreement. As Odette reveals her true appearance, everyone in a gambling house is stunned. She has a perfect look with black hair and charming eyes. Even Bastian is shocked by her beauty. He thought that Gambler was a complete fraud, but he didn't expect his daughter to indeed have stunning beauty. After seeing her face, Bastian keeps his promise and lets them go. After they return home, Dissen still acts as if nothing happened and goes straight to sleep. Seeing this scene, Tira is furious, complaining that it's bad enough he drinks and owes money every day. But how dare he use Sister Odette as a bet? Can we report this to the Emperor? Sister Odette, after all, you are his niece. Odette suddenly stands up upon hearing this. She sternly tells her not to do that, because she understands that once the Emperor knows about what her father did, they might lose the imperial pension. Odette clearly knows the Emperor won't help them, because to him, she is the daughter of that insect who ruined his sister's life. On the other side, in the Garden of the Powerful, Arden, a coastal city near the capital, is a place where the villas of the imperial family and aristocrats are mostly located. It has been acquired by the emerging tycoon Clawitz family that monopolized the railway business of the Empire. Bastian just got out of the car, and his Aunt Maria hurries to greet him. She heard that Bastian just inherited a huge fortune from his mother's family, and reminds him to make good use of the cards in his hand. After all, no one knows better than himself the reason his grandfather gave him the property before dying. Bastian smiles and plays dumb, saying he doesn't understand what she's talking about. Knowing his intention, Maria doesn't continue this topic, and instead mentions that today his stepbrother Franz will announce his engagement, and his fiancée is the daughter of Count Klein. Bastian's gaze turns pensive. Since Franz's mother is a noble, his father, eager to climb the social ladder, early on designated Franz as the heir. Bastian reveals a mocking smile. His precious son can marry a woman from the upper class? He must be overjoyed. Maria takes this opportunity to remind Bastian, advising him to quickly find a bride to keep his company. Bastian pretends to show an obedient smile and agrees. Maria feels helpless about his pretense, but she seriously reminds him not to choose Princess Isabel because she will drag him to hell. The rumors of Princess Isabel's obsession with Bastian have already spread throughout the social circle. Bastian vaguely remembers the princess who accompanied His Majesty to military school when he was there, which was indeed a very burdensome memory. He shakes his head helplessly, indicating he has no feelings for Isabel, but Maria reminds him not to think too simply. After all, the Emperor once saw his sister, whose life was ruined by being blinded by love. If he associates that his daughter might repeat Princess Helene's mistake, then it will be hard for him to make rational judgments. Hearing her mention Princess Helene, Bastian suddenly remembers the beggar duke he met the day before yesterday, and his daughter with the blood of the imperial family. Noticing him lost in thought, Maria interrupts. Bastian collects his thoughts. Don't worry, what you're concerned about will never happen. At this time in the imperial palace, the Empress is worrying about her daughter, who has a fiancé but looks at other man's photos every night. The Emperor originally didn't think this was a big deal, but the Empress brings up his sister who eloped as an example. Princess Helene also had a fiancé. Didn't she still end up blinded by love and ruin her marriage? Hearing this, the Emperor's face immediately darkens. Realizing her overstepping, the Empress quickly explains she's just afraid their daughter will repeat past mistakes. The Emperor thinks for a moment and seriously assures the Empress that although Bastian is excellent, he will never become Isabel's partner. Speaking of Princess Helene, the Empress then talks about her daughter Odette. Duke Dissen has caused many troubles. If this continues, Odette might get into trouble. The Emperor coldly doesn't want to deal with that beggar duke's affairs. Helene is gone, and whatever happens to the Dissen family has nothing to do with him. But the Empress continues to persuade him. Duke Dissen is indeed detestable, but we can't just watch Helene's only daughter live an unfortunate life because of him. Seeing him hesitate, she adds, why don't we find Odette a suitable marriage partner, like Bastian Clawitz, whom Isabel is infatuated with? No matter how humble his birth, he's the son son of one of the richest people in the empire and a military hero who has made great contributions. What's most important is, if Bastian becomes her cousin's husband, Isabel will have to completely give up that affection to protect our daughter and Helene's daughter. Please let Bastian and Odette marry. In this world, marriage is the best trading opportunity. Bastian's father gained huge assets by marrying his mother, and later raised his status by remarrying a woman from a noble family. Bastian has never forgotten that lesson his father proved himself through the benefits gained from his 2 marriages. If he must use marriage as a transaction, then he wants to win the greatest benefit through this deal, and the woman before him, Sandrine, is the only daughter of Duke Laviere, though she married to Count Renard a few years ago. However, due to constant marital conflicts, she's about to divorce and nonchalantly return to the Laviere family. And the powerful Laviere family is exactly the stepping stone Bastian plans to use to cross class barriers. Sandrine says arrogantly, "I'm doing my best to move up to your glory days. I believe you won't be so impatient as to make foolish mistakes during this period." Bastian suddenly moves closer to her. "Of course, I'll also do my best to not betray the trust we have, but please don't be too confident of yourself. Though the Laviere family is my best choice now, you also know the marriage market is unpredictable." Sandrine asks displeasedly if he's threatening her. Bastian shows a brilliant smile and wishes her attain her freedom soon. Sandrine is speechless about his sudden fake smile. Suddenly, she glimpses a figure behind him. It's Bastian's stepmother. She instantly understands his sudden approach and fake smile are all to anger Lady Clawitz. "Don't you find it tiring to consider even this?" After they confirm their trust relationship, Sandrine no longer lingers. Bastian also walks to the balcony for air. Looking at the endless sea, he suddenly zones out. For some reason, he remembers that woman in a gambling house who never shed a tear until the end. He doesn't understand why he thought of that irrelevant woman. At this time, Maria comes over in panic. "Bastian, why are you here? You have no good memories about the sea. Have you forgotten? You once almost drowned in the sea." Years ago, young Bastian was chased by vicious dogs to a cliff. To escape, he chose to leap into the sea. Fortunately, Maria saw him from a distance, and he survived. Maria brought the wounded him home and wanted to thoroughly investigate this obvious attempted murder, but his father dismissed it lightly as an accident, witnessing her brother's indifference toward Bastian. She even suspected this was all her brother's doing. Maria was aware that she couldn't let Bastian stay in the Clawitz family any longer, so she contacted Bastian's grandfather. A week later, the Elise family took him away. Though driving Bastian away was what her brother wanted, she doesn't regret this decision because only those who survive have the chance for revenge. Now that Bastian has grown up, she still can't help worrying about him. "Honestly, I don't really like that woman preparing for divorce, but undeniably she is indeed your most suitable bride choice right now, because she has what you need most. If you have the Laviere family as backing, it will definitely pose a threat to your father." Feeling understood, Bastian's expression becomes gentle, but Maria doesn't forget to remind him that even so, he doesn't need to completely exclude other advantageous options, just in case. He should always be prepared. Meanwhile, Countess Trier, sent by the Emperor, finds Odette. She's the maternal cousin of the previous Emperor. Upon seeing Odette, Countess Trier can't help sighing. "You do look like your father. It's a relief that he even left something for his own children." She then directly states her purpose. "Odette, I have brought you a marriage proposal, and it's a groom introduced by the royal family." Hearing this, Odette is shocked, and doesn't understand why she brings up marriage all of a sudden. Countess Trier gets straight to the point since she doesn't want to beat around the bush. "The Emperor wants you to marry, and the target is Bastian Clawitz." Odette is full of confusion. Trier explains it's because Princess Isabel is obsessed with Bastian, but he's a lowly commoner unworthy of being the princess's husband. Therefore, His Majesty orders Bastian to marry her, to completely cut off Isabel's thoughts. Countess Trier earnestly introduces Bastian to Odette. Though the Clawitz family isn't nobility, it's still a wealthy family. Recently, Bastian has also become a military hero. However, Odette keeps her head down and says nothing. After a long silence, she finally speaks then. "Can you convey my wishes to His Majesty on my behalf?" Seeing this, Countess Trier's eyes darken. She immediately understands Odette doesn't want to cooperate. "Your wishes? Do you think this marriage is asking for your wishes? This is an order," Odette angrily shouts. "Why should I comply with this unfair demand? Because you are the daughter of Helene and Duke Dissen. Haven't you figured it out yet?" Odette's heart sinks. So the Emperor's meaning is to have her atone for her parents' mistakes. Countess Trier sighs. "In my view, this is also an opportunity for you. Even if you never thought about marriage, you who now live worse than a servant can't bury your life for that worthless father. And Bastian is definitely a good marriage partner." Odette pauses, wanting to say something, but she is interrupted by Countess Trier, who strokes her face with a gentler expression. "Anyway, let's try first. maybe Bastian is a man who will be blinded by beauty. On the other side, when Bastian just returned to his mansion, Butler Lovis tells him there's a letter signed by Odette. Bastian frowns in confusion. His Majesty explains she's the Emperor's niece. Only then does Bastian remember that a few days ago, Marquise de Mel conveyed to him that His Majesty wanted to marry Princess Helene's daughter to him. That is, the daughter of the princess who was once expelled from the royal family. Bastian guessed His Majesty would do such an absurd thing, probably because of Princess Isabel. Bastian feels troubled that his long-planned marriage is about to be realized, only to be thrown into chaos at the last moment. But he can't let this marriage ruin his years of effort, so for now, the best way is for him to give the Emperor face first, and then reasonably end this relationship. Noticing the full name written in the lower right corner of the envelope, he suddenly finds it amusing. Even her name is a headache. A few days later, Odette receives Bastian's reply. She carefully wrote a full page of self-introduction, while he dismissively used just a few sentences. She complains inwardly that he's a rude man. Though unwilling, she can only comply since it concerns the imperial order. No matter what, she needs to have a talk with him before the palace ball begins, and Bastian happens to think the same way. To cooperate with the Emperor's forced marriage arrangement, he needs to quickly contract marry Odette, and divorce her after Princess Isabel successfully marries a prince from another country. This way it won't affect his plan to marry Sandrine as agreed a year later. He has already set the meeting place with Odette in advance, and hopes she's someone easy to communicate with. In the luxurious restaurant, Odette arrives as promised, but after an hour passes, she still hasn't seen the other party arrive. She even suspects he won't come. At this time, a man in military uniform enters through the door. Odette looks up, sighing inwardly that he finally came. Bastian walks slowly closer, but Odette is in shock, even doubting her own eyes. She can't believe that the man who used her as a bet that day in a gambling house is actually the hero of the Empire. At this time, Bastian is equally shocked. He also didn't expect that the bet he won that night was his marriage partner. He can't help but smile playfully. Then he takes off his hat and introduces himself. I am Bastian Clovitz. Lady Odette, it seems we're not meeting for the first time. Odette keeps her head down, seemingly a bit angry, questioning whether he knew everything from the beginning. Bastian unhurriedly picks up his teacup. Of course not, regrettably, I don't have such a rich imagination. I never would have imagined that the father who used his daughter as a bet in a gambling house would actually be a duke, and what I won there was the niece of His Majesty. Odette senses his unfriendliness. In fact, the moment she met his gaze, she already knew he looked down on her and didn't want to accept this forced marriage. On this point, they both reached a consensus, so she requests that he refuse this marriage proposal. However, faced with her request, Bastian smiles and refuses, mocking inwardly that it seems her days of struggling at the bottom haven't made her abandon her class consciousness. Then, he directly states his purpose, not hiding his plan to put on a show with her. After Princess Isabel marries, they'll divorce immediately. Hearing this, Odette is very shocked, scolding him for planning to deceive the royal family. Bastian's face darkens. Please don't misunderstand. As long as we look like a couple planning to marry, the Emperor won't care if we're acting. Odette also realizes he's telling the truth. She's just a shield the Emperor uses to protect the princess. After a moment of silence, Odette hesitantly asks, don't you care about the gossip during this time? That might damage your reputation. Bastian is indifferent about this. It doesn't matter. I'm not a gentleman anyway. Seeing Odette still wants to persuade him, Bastian asks back, in that case, Lady Odette, how about you personally refuse His Majesty? After all, compared to me, a small navy officer, he should be more willing to respect the opinion of his niece. Though Bastian says this, he knows that Odette must also have her purpose for coming here. Seeing her remain silent, he doesn't want to waste time, and gets up to leave. But Odette calls out to him. She extends her hand and gives him an envelope. Bastian pauses. Are you planning to pay me for tea? Odette nods decisively. That's right, I don't want to freeload your tea. Seeing her serious expression, Bastian is stunned. Then he curves his lips and bursts into laughter. He turns around and puts on his military cap. You'd better save that money or give it to Duke Dyson as a subsidy. Otherwise, when he gambles it all away again, he might just pawn you in that place. Odette asks in confusion what he means. Bastian restrains his laughter. You were lucky to encounter me that day, but you might not be so fortunate next time. Odette stares in shock, standing there dazed as she watches him walk away. She understands this man is despising her, but he still has to obey the Emperor's order. She thinks maybe his proposal is indeed an effective way to solve the current situation. Then she returns home with mixed feelings. As soon as she reaches the door, she hears arguing from inside the house. She hurriedly pushes the door open and sees her father yelling about seizing the private savings she and Tira have accumulated. He even raises his hand to slap Tira. In desperation, Odette shields her, and that slap lands on her face instead. Seeing he hit Odette, Dyson feels uneasy. Odette coldly warns him not to lay hands on Tira again, or she won't tolerate it anymore. Dyson defensively asks back, so, what happens if you don't hold back? What are you going to do? Odette walks up to him. If you continue like this, what you fear most will happen. You should know very well that the royal family wouldn't continue giving our family Ray pensions pension without me. Dyson doesn't dare make a fuss anymore, and turns away angrily. Odette knows very well she is her father's weakness, because she is the last link between this family and the royal family. Without her, his last source of income would be cut off. Though she and Tira are half-siblings, they've depended on each other until now, and Tira has become very important to her. Moreover, she doesn't want to abandon the life she's worked hard to maintain. She tells herself she can't be weak. To protect what's important to her, she can endure anything, including her father. And that contract marriage called protecting the princess. Not long after they reach their contract marriage agreement, Bastian receives an invitation to a royal ball for the first time. Knowing this is the emperor testing whether his marriage with Odette is proceeding smoothly. But he thinks it's not bad to get such a reward. He guesses Odette must have also received an invitation. Recalling her stubborn look, Bastian chuckles and begins to anticipate what she'll look like at the ball. Soon it's the day of the ball. Nobles all receive invitations to attend the ball. As soon as Bastian enters, young nobles swarm around him, and this scene is witnessed by his stepbrother Franz. But other nobles aside, he didn't expect even Duke Herhart, a close confidant of His Majesty, to know him. His face immediately turns gloomy. Bastian is just a lowly commoner expelled by the Clauvitz family. At this moment, Bastian glimpses him in the corner, walks up and politely greets him, then says hello to his fiancée Ella. While Franz is full of jealousy and resentment for him, just wanting to give him a warning, he mockingly asks how it feels to enter the imperial palace for the first time. Bastian sees through his little trick and responds calmly, "I'm so touched that I'll treasure it as a lifelong honor, just like you once did." Franz is momentarily speechless, not even realizing Bastian is mocking him. The next moment, the guard announces loudly, "Lady Odette from the Dyson family has arrived." Franz shows joy, thinking that the problematic bride who can ruin Bastian's first palace ball has arrived. However, when Odette slowly follows Countess Treyer in, he can't smile anymore, because she's wearing formal dress gracefully, her face so exquisitely perfect, and her entire being radiates nobility and elegance. All the nobles present praise her beauty without exception. Franz looks at Odette in disbelief. He thought she was a rotten piece of meat tossed by the emperor to Bastian, but how is she so beautiful? Seeing Odette arrive, Bastian strides forward. The ballroom immediately falls silent, as if only they are the protagonists here. Their gazes meet. Then Bastian first invites her to dance. "Let's go, Lady Odette!" The ball officially begins. The emperor and empress are also very satisfied with the ball's smooth progress. Nobles begin to dance. Franz dances with Ella, but his eyes keep darting dissatisfied glances toward Bastian, who and Odette look so well matched. Bastian initiates conversation. "I was worried you wouldn't attend the ball. It seems I was overthinking." Odette responds neither humbly nor arrogantly. "The imperial order is equally significant to me. So, may I assume you're willing to finish this play with me?" She lowers her head without answering. But Bastian knows very well that after tonight her reputation will be completely ruined. He knows that despite knowing this, she still chose to attend the ball, so she must have something she wants to get from the emperor. Thinking of this, he finds it more interesting, so he deliberately tightens his grip on her hand, and suddenly turns, his sudden movement making Odette stumble. Bastian smoothly catches her. So from now on, they have a relationship of mutual benefit and use. He leans close to Odette and whispers, "I'll take that as your agreement. Since that's the case, why don't we act more thoroughly and satisfy the emperor?" Actually, even before the ball began, Odette had already made her decision. On the way to the palace, watching the girl who is about to sacrifice her happiness for the pension, Countess Treyer feels sympathy about her. She knows Odette is pretending to be calm and anxious about entering an unfamiliar world. Walking in the palace corridor, seeing the garden full of flowers through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Odette stops, sighing that it's indeed as beautiful as her mother described. When she was little, whenever her mother mentioned the palace, she would always be very excited. Until the end, she would sob and collapse on the ground. Odette never understood from childhood why mother would choose love when she knew she'd regret it. For father, that kind of bastard, she betrayed her family and country, and clearly knowing she was wrong, she still couldn't see reality and lived in fantasies. After love shattered, she began to long for that past she could never return to. But Odette knows what she wants. She will never live like mother. She knows the importance of money to life. Though she doesn't plan to sacrifice honor and self-respect for money, she also can't put vanity above life's priorities. Her marriage contract with Bastian concerns the imperial pension, so even knowing he looks down on her, she will accompany him in finishing this play. Therefore, at the ball, facing his approach, Odette closes her eyes. But at the last moment, she still blushes and turns her head away. Bastian pauses, then leans close to her ear and whispers, "Don't mess up the act. The most important audience is watching us." Following his gaze, Odette sees Princess Isabel on the second floor frantically downing the wine in her cup and glaring at her viciously, as if wanting to tear her apart immediately. Odette lowers her head and continues dancing with Bastian. Bastian looks at her, praising that her jewelry and dress tonight are beautiful. Odette calmly thanks him for the compliment on the surface, but wonders inwardly what he wants to say again. As she expected, Bastian shows an annoying smile. "You'll have to return them tonight, right?" Odette feels speechless. She heard he graduated from a prestigious noble school before becoming an officer. So how could a man of his elite education stoop to such crude remarks? So obviously, he's doing it on purpose. Odette bites her teeth. Since she has nothing left to hide, she decides to be straightforward. Yes, I have to return them. After all, I only have enough money to rent from the shop for one day. But you don't worry, I have enough money left to afford these accessories. Her frank attitude surprises Bastian. Lady Odette, it seems you have more money than I expected. This is thanks to you. Last time we met, you saved me considerable money, so I could afford the jewelry and clothing needed for this play without worry. She smiles brilliantly. Bastian feezes for a moment, then turns his head and smiles along. Anyway, I'm glad you could put the money to meaningful use. But Odette thinks this approach is natural. She owes him a favor, so the money naturally should be used on him. Hearing such reasoning, Bastian thinks he should treat her to another big meal next time, so she can save even more money. Odette firmly refuses him, because she doesn't want to owe debts beyond her ability to repay. Bastian asks amusedly, "Don't tell me you're afraid I'll sell you to pay debts?" Odette smiles playfully. "That's hard to say. After all, judging from the day we first met, it's hard for me to trust you." Bastian looks thoughtful. He knows every noble is very proud and stubborn, but on this point, Odette doesn't lose to anyone. Suddenly, commotion behind them interrupts his thoughts. They stop and turn to look. Princess Isabel approaches with anger, stumbling. Her face is flushed red from alcohol, her eyes unfocused. Ignoring other nobles' greetings, she charges toward them aggressively, glaring fiercely at Odette. Suddenly, she reaches out and slaps Odette, roaring, "Stay away from Bastian, you disgusting beggar." Isabel has liked Bastian for 6 whole years. She knows her parents forced Bastian to marry that beggar's daughter to make her give up. This would indeed quiet the gossip about her. Isabel assumes that Bastian accepted the marriage because of the imperial order. After all, he's a loyally foolish soldier, but she can't bear to let him suffer such unfair treatment. Isabel believes that only she can understand Bastian now, and she unilaterally assumes that Bastian must love her. He doesn't dare express his feelings for her because of his humble birth. She even fantasizes that he is willing to sacrifice himself for her sake, forcing himself to marry the awful Odette. She rushes frantically toward them. The moment she sees Odette, Isabel becomes more furious. She charges right up to her and delivers a resounding slap. "I order you to get away from Bastian, you beggar!" With her violent movement, Odette staggers, and the necklace she had borrowed scatters as well. Bastian steps in front of her. "Please calm down, your highness." But how can Isabel calm down? She screams hysterically, "Bastian, she's seducing you for money. She is no different than a courtesan." Hearing her insults, Odette remains calm. She tells herself this is just a princess blinded by one-side love and jealousy, trying to hurt her with harsh words. She silently picks up the gems scattered on the ground. Even after being humiliated like this, she knows what matters most right now. Moreover, it is just an act to follow the imperial order. Until she gathers up all the scattered gems, Odette slowly rises. Her calm reaction makes Isabel more annoyed. "Bastian, look at her now. Even her jewelry is borrowed, and she is blinded by those jewels." But Odette pays no mind to her cutting words and merely glances lightly at her. Then she turns around. She hands the gems to a servant. "Please help me keep them until the ball ends." Furious at being repeatedly ignored, Isabel steps forward again, ready to make her pay. But Bastian extends his hand to stop her. "Your Highness, you're drunk." Isabel looks up at the man she adores. She thinks his expression looks so sorrowful, and pathetically fantasizes that he must love her too. Then she suddenly embraces him and confesses desperately, "I love you so much." The smell of alcohol hits Bastian, making him feel a severe headache. With a sigh, he reminds her to calm down. The Empress on the second floor watches this scene in disbelief. She collapses to the ground, as the thing she has feared most finally comes to pass. The entire ballroom falls silent in an instant. After recovering from the shock, the nobles begin murmuring that Isabel has followed in Helene's unfortunate footsteps. At this moment, Isabel can't hear any of these words because she is lost in her own fantasy. She caresses Bastian's face obsessively. "Don't hide your feelings for me, Bastian. It's time to prove our love to the whole world." But the next moment, she's coldly brushed away by Bastian. His demeanor instantly turns cold. "Isabel can't believe she's being rejected. I've gone this far. Are you still going to keep hiding your feelings?" Even when being pulled away by the crown prince, she still can't accept this outcome. Seeing her obstinate delusion, the crown prince directly drags her away from the scene, yet she still crazily shouts, "Bastian, answer me! You love me too, don't you?" Witnessing her finally leaving, Bastian breathes a sigh of relief. He turns to look at Odette behind him, asking if she's all right. Even in such an awkward situation, he manages to maintain her dignity. She brushes back the hair falling beside her injured cheek, looking utterly composed and graceful. Then she lifts lifts her skirt, indicating they should continue dancing. Bastian is amazed that not even such an insult could alter her expression in the slightest. She even wants not to lose her dignity by finishing this dance with him. Such a proud and stubborn woman. Makes him remember when she was almost sold by her father to pay debts. She was just as fearless as today. He has to admit, she is a woman of remarkable poise. She's like a proud queen. Even though her face is pale enough to faint, she keeps forcing herself to maintain her dignity. For the sake of her pride, Bastian sincerely bows to her with genuine respect. The nobles present are shocked. They had just experienced such an incident, yet now they seem completely unaffected. In fact, only Bastian can sense that. Odette is trembling. Her complexion is also poor. Cold sweat slides down her cheek. Finally, she can't hold on and stumbles about to fall. Fortunately, Bastian catches her in time. Hold on. You wouldn't want others to see you make a fool of yourself, would you? Odette didn't expect him to understand her. She grips his hand tightly to support herself. Until the ball ends, she never shows a moment of impropriety. Bastian slowly escorts Odette toward Countess Trier. The ball finally comes to an end. Countess Trier is also surprised by Bastian's performance. She has been observing him throughout the ball, and what amazes her is how effortlessly he handles noble etiquette, which makes it hard for her to believe he's entering the imperial palace for the first time. She asks if he and Odette enjoyed each other's company tonight. Bastian replies politely, "It's been my great honor to spend such a special day with the beautiful Lady Odette." After bidding farewell to Bastian, Countess Trier turns to look at Odette. Finally allowing herself to relax, Odette shows her discomfort and exhaustion. Countess Trier sighs softly. After all, after suffering such humiliation, how could she not be affected? Looking at her who tensed her nerves and persisted until now, Countess Trier gently pats her back to comfort her. "Helene truly raised you well. Child, you have done wonderfully, you are perfect." Her sudden praise brings a bloom of tears to Odette's eyes, as if her efforts have finally been recognized. "Thank you, Countess Trier." A few days later, Odette receives another invitation from Countess Trier in an upscale restaurant. The first thing she does upon sitting down is ask Countess Trier about the condition of the necklace that was thrown to the ground. She feels that Countess Trier trusted her by lending her the expensive jewelry, but she failed to protect it, which makes her feel guilty. Countess Trier puts down her champagne and states bluntly that she doesn't like such pretentious talk, but Odette takes this seriously. "If the necklace can't be repaired, I can compensate you." "Compensate? What will you use to compensate?" "I plan to report to His Majesty that the incident that day was entirely Princess Isabel's fault. Even if he doesn't think much of me, you are an elder of the royal family, and I think he won't lose his courtesy toward you." Countess Trier is very satisfied with her ability to adapt and respond to crises. This is indeed the simplest and most effective method for Odette. She tells Odette that after the jewelry store sends the repair cost estimate, she will send the reimbursement bill to the palace. Odette confirms with her again whether the necklace can really be repaired. Countess Trier nods. "Yes, thanks to you picking up the gems scattered on the ground." Odette is very delighted. Countess Trier looks at her with exasperation, like a wooden block in front of men but smiling brilliantly in front of her. While they're talking, Marquise de Mel suddenly walks over and greets Countess Trier. "What a coincidence, I didn't expect to see you here." Odette looks up and discovers that the one who came with Marquis de Mel is Bastian. When their eyes meet, both are stunned, obviously finding this meeting too coincidental. Then Countess Trier naturally invites them to dine together. At this moment, Odette finally understands Countess Trier's intention for this invitation. This is the restaurant with the best business in the bustling district. The time is the most lively Saturday noon, and it's also the most conspicuous central location. Bastian also instantly understands this is a deliberately arranged meeting. Obviously, this is something Marquise de Mel and Countess Trier orchestrated to let the entire social circle see him and Odette together. During the meal, Marquise de Mel enthusiastically invites Odette to be Bastian's companion at the upcoming friendly polo game held by the Navy. Hearing this, Odette also understands in her heart that the Emperor urgently wants more people to see her relationship with Bastian, to dilute Princess Isabel's scandal at the ball. Since this contract marriage began, the social activities she participates in will only increase. Odette knows she has nowhere to escape, but this was her own decision. She must see it through to the end. "If it's your invitation, I'd be delighted." She tells herself it doesn't matter. As long as she doesn't put her heart into any person or anything, this marriage can't hurt her. After the meal ends, Marquise de Mel and Countess Trier find excuses to leave together, while Bastian and Odette must begin the next step of their fake date. Since the Emperor wants more people to see them appearing together, they have no choice but to comply. "Lady Odette, is there anywhere you'd like to go?" Odette thinks for a moment and replies, "I'm sorry, I don't understand this kind of thing." Bastian Bastian doesn't understand what kind of things she's referring to. Things that young couples should do, so I'm willing to follow your way. Upon hearing this, a glint of mischief flashes in Bastian's eyes, but seeing her innocent expression, he decides not to tease her. After thinking for a moment, he makes a reasonable suggestion. In that case, do you like looking at paintings? Moments later, they appear outside the art museum with the largest crowd. Everyone's gazes turn toward them. Bastian knows he truly chose a good place. Before even entering the museum, Odette discovers it's suddenly snowing. She exclaims softly and runs toward the open space, trying to catch the falling snowflakes with her hands, her eyes lightly sparkling with surprise and excitement. Behind her, Bastian gazes at her back thoughtfully. He originally thought he'd gotten involved with a troublesome woman, but now it seems Odette is an unexpected pleasant surprise for him. Thanks to her, he has been able to attract attention during his first entry into high society, and has even eliminated the time bomb that was Princess Isabel. Seeing snowflakes gently landing on her brow, Bastian removes his military cap, walks toward her, and places it on her head. Although her appearance disrupted his original plan, at this moment, he feels that this marriage arrangement with her will surely become credentials that enhance his value. Well, I think we can start our facade now. As he expected, through this deliberately arranged date, their affair spreads throughout the social circle. Bastian completely escapes the rumors about Princess Isabel. People's chatter continues endlessly. Odette stands quietly in place without saying a word, until Bastian reminds her, then she collects her thoughts. Sorry, I was concentrating on looking at the painting, so I didn't hear what you just said. At this time, she notices the time indicated on the wall clock. It's time for Tira to get out of school, and the art museum is close to the school, so she can go back with Tira. Bastian is confused. Aren't you Princess Helene's only daughter? Odette explains that Tira is her stepsister. Tira's mother was once a maid who occasionally worked at their house and has now passed away. Although people whisper that Tira is an illegitimate daughter, she is very important family to Odette. Bastian didn't expect their sisterly relationship to be so good. Then he can't help but comment that it's interesting. In comparison, he and his stepbrother have never gotten along so amicably. After that, they plan to go back. After all, they've already received enough attention. The streets are particularly crowded now. Before leaving, Odette declines Bastian's offer to take her home, because she doesn't want to trouble him. And besides, Tira would feel uncomfortable. Thank you for your kindness. We can just take the tram back later. Being refused, Bastian doesn't insist, watching them struggle to squeeze onto the tram. Judging by the crowded situation, he guesses they probably won't be able to get on that tram. But this has nothing to do with him. He steps on the gas and drives away. Hearing the tram's whistle, he stops halfway, thinking of Odette being squeezed out of the crowd, and her face red from the cold. He hesitates, sighs softly, suddenly turns the steering wheel, and returns to the original spot, intending to take them who couldn't get on the tram home, but he discovers the platform is now empty. He knows Odette has already pushed through the crowd and boarded the tram, looking toward the direction where the tram disappeared. Bastian reflects that this woman is more resilient than he imagined. A few days later, the polo game begins. Odette arrives as promised. Just after entering the venue, she's stopped by a strange woman. You're Lady Odette, right? Nice to meet you, I'm Sandrine. Odette greets her politely. Sandrine first praises Odette's performance at the royal ball, then deliberately reveals that her relationship with Bastian is quite special. Before Odette can respond, Sandrine steps closer threateningly. Please remember my name well. We'll definitely be seeing each other often from now on. With that, she turns and leaves briskly, looking at her retreating figure. Odette feels baffled, unable to understand what her words mean. She quickly collects her thoughts and handles conversations with the noble ladies at the venue with ease. Although this is her first time at such an occasion, she shows no sign of panic. She could even be called a model of ladylike behavior. Suddenly, she glimpses a familiar figure. Franz Clawitz, Bastian's brother. Upon seeing the beautiful Odette, Franz shows infatuation. Odette thinks that since he's Bastian's brother, she should go over and greet him according to etiquette. However, just as she's about to go over, her hand is grabbed. She turns her head and discovers it's Bastian. Hello, Captain. I was just about to go greet your brother. Bastian tells her there's no need to bother with that kind of thing. Odette is startled, not understanding what he means. Seeing him smile and raise his hand for her to take, Odette has no choice but to comply. Then, Bastian deliberately looks back at Franz behind them, as if asserting his ownership. Odette doesn't understand his intention, but she can clearly sense that Bastian and his brother's relationship is indeed very bad. At this time, in a corner not far away, a woman trembles with jealousy. Sandrine suddenly understands why Princess Isabel behaves so crazy, because no one knows better than her what it feels like to desperately want to have Bastian. Bastian brushes away the stray hair from Odette's cheek, leaning close to her ear and whispering, "This dress you're wearing today is also beautiful. It seems thanks to me, you've saved quite a bit of tea money." Odette shows a brilliant smile on the surface, but internally she's wildly complaining about his sharp tongue. But their mutually fake smiling scene appears very loving to outsiders. At this time, Sandrine suddenly appears behind them. She nods to indicate to Bastian that she has something to say to him. Bastian understands what this business partner means. He uses the excuse of forgetting to get his equipment to ask Odette's leave for a moment. Of course, Odette won't ask too many questions. She can use his absence to go to the powder room and touch up her makeup. When Bastian comes to the terrace, Sandrine is waiting for him. Seeing him arrive, she speaks first to question, "You should have something to say to me, right, Bastian? Since you've chosen Lady Odette, you should have at least told me in advance." This sentence is overheard by Odette, who is looking for the powder room in the corridor. She recognizes this voice as Sandrine, who greeted her earlier. Then she hears Bastian say pleasantly, "Lady Odette and I are merely in a transactional relationship. We're only doing this for our respective interests." Sandrine immediately shows a delighted expression. "Then can you swear to this?" Bastian smiles and refuses her. "That seems a bit excessive, doesn't it?" Perhaps realizing her impropriety, Sandrine ends this topic in a joking manner. "Sorry, I'm being too sensitive, but you must know that anyone would feel uneasy when encountering something difficult to control." Then she talks about remarrying him after the divorce. Hearing what she says, Odette is shocked that Bastian has already planned for after the divorce. She turns to leave, not wanting to hear them continue. But Sandrine's next words make her stop in her tracks. "I may yield you to Lady Odette by daylight, but you must save the nights for me." Her statement makes Odette feel deeply insulted. She suppresses the anger in her heart and walks away quickly. She keeps telling herself it's fine, she won't be affected by this kind of thing. At this time, Bastian remains silent for a long while without replying to her question. Sandrine can't help but remind him, but Bastian suddenly pulls away the hand she was grabbing him with and addresses her distantly as Countess Renard, refusing her insulting proposal. He shows a perfect fake smile. "I think our friendship hasn't degraded to the point of becoming mere desire." Sandrine gives up pestering, her eyes flashing with some restraint. "Yes, it's indeed a very precious friendship." Then Bastian slightly increases the distance between them, saying like a gentleman, "Please maintain your dignity. That will make you look more beautiful." After saying that, he turns and leaves decisively. Sandrine watches his retreating figure, although she clearly knows Bastian is just using her. And that ambitious man has never had an ounce of love for her, but it doesn't matter. As long as she can stand by his side, she's willing. The polo game officially begins. According to the tradition of the pre-ceremony, the female companion must give something meaningful to the male partner to wish him good luck in the upcoming game. But Odette makes no move, because all her accessories are borrowed. Not a single thing belongs to her. Bastian sees her embarrassment and pulls off her hair ribbon. "Although I've never liked this kind of empty ritual, considering that we are the focus of much attention, it's better to follow the rules. So this ribbon enough, I will treasure it well." After that, the polo game officially begins. Bastian enters the field. The hair ribbon tied to the end of his polo stick is also particularly conspicuous. Odette feels somewhat embarrassed, because his action is like declaring ownership. The game progresses intensely, and her thoughts are also drawn back to the match by the surrounding cheers. She sees that only the last ball remains to decide the outcome. Bastian, with a smooth and handsome move, grabs the last ball and strikes it. It's in! The blue team wins! His teammates cheer loudly. At this moment, Bastian is also infected by the joy of victory. He turns back to look for Odette. She's applauding along with the audience, but her expression is very calm. Bastian restrains his smile. Odette meets his gaze and nods politely at him. A hint of disappointment seems to flash in Bastian's eyes at this moment. Seeing her task-like behavior, he also calms down. Thinking that she has fulfilled her duty, that's enough. He shouldn't expect too much either. In the locker room, Sandrine stares darkly at the polo stick Bastian used. She finds that pink hair ribbon particularly irritating. She knows Bastian has never cared for noble rituals, but this time he ostentatiously tied that woman's hair ribbon to his polo stick. Sandrine jealously tears off the hair ribbon and throws it toward a muddy corner. The hair ribbon that disgusted her throughout the entire game should now return to where it belongs. Odette originally planned to continue participating in the subsequent victory banquet. However, a commotion attracts her attention. She looks in the direction of the sound. As if noticing something, she's suddenly startled, then strides forward to confirm whether she saw wrong. But the fact is so cruel. Looking at the hair ribbon thrown away right after the game ended, Odette finally realizes that her usefulness for today has ended. Ridiculously, she was just thinking about waiting until after the banquet to leave with him. She forces out a smile and asks a nearby noble lady to help convey to Bastian that she's feeling uncomfortable and is leaving first. Walking alone on the street, Odette feels melancholy. She tells herself that if it weren't for the imperial pension, she wouldn't need to cooperate with this ridiculous charade. If only she had a better way to make money. Suddenly, she's attracted by a notice on the public bulletin board in the square. It's a recruitment notice for a tutor. She immediately gets an idea. On the other side, Bastian walks out of the stadium with his colleagues. He didn't expect Odette to leave without saying goodbye. It is extremely unlike her style, considering she's very particular about etiquette. Eric suddenly interrupts his thoughts. Look, Bastian, isn't that yours? He sees Odette's hair ribbon lying quietly in the mud. Bastian is astonished. The colleagues behind him speculate whether Lady Odette left because she saw this. Thinking that Lucas mentioned Sandrine went to the locker room, Bastian's face immediately darkens. Under Lucas's surprised gaze, he walks toward the mud puddle, then he crouches down and picks up the dirty hair ribbon. This is his possession. No matter for what reason it was given to him, it's something he should protect, because it belongs to him. At the same time, Franz happens to see the Odette who fascinates him on the street. He even secretly follows her, and wants to seize this opportunity, to stand on her side when everyone looks down on her, and even Bastian has abandoned her. Then, he can surely successfully win her over. At this time, Bastian doesn't know about Franz's dangerous thoughts. He's sitting at home flipping through women's clothing catalogs. His actions leave Lovis utterly shocked. He wonders if his master is planning to enter the women's clothing business. Little does he know Bastian is calculating what to buy for Odette. Every time he hears nobles call Odette the beggar princess, he feels inexplicably annoyed. At this time, Lovis, who had just left, suddenly returns in a hurry. Master, there's a man at the front gate, making a scene demanding to see you. The admitted Duke Dissen has a smug look on his face. Ever since he ran into Odette and Bastian together on the street the day before yesterday, he's come up with a new money-obtaining scheme. Bastian doesn't want to waste words with him. Let's get to the point, Duke Dissen. What do you want from me? Faced with his arrogant attitude, anger and contempt flash in Dissen's eyes. How dare you, a grandson of a lowly junk dealer, covet the daughter of a princess? I will never marry Odette to you. Obviously, Dissen has misunderstood the relationship between Bastian and Odette. Bastian is also angered by his words, mocking him. That doesn't sound like something someone who has already used his daughter as a gambling stake and sold her to me once would say. It seems that in just a few days, your mindset has suddenly changed dramatically. If it weren't for me letting you off that day, that debt wouldn't be so easily settled. His words are cold and merciless. Nothing like the information Dissen had gathered that he was madly in love with Odette. However, Dissen still feels he's the one in the right. Don't think you can treat me this way just because you have backing. I'm Odette's father. If you want to marry her, you must get my consent. So, if you want to be worthy of my daughter, shouldn't you show some sincerity? Bastian makes it clear that he can't get a single penny from him. I don't care what kind of family you marry your daughter to in the future, but right now His Majesty won't let her go. You'd better behave yourself. Otherwise, after the arranged marriage ends, if rumors spread that she's been defiled by the likes of me, it'll be hard for you to sell her for a good price again. Faced with his continuous contempt, Dissen humiliatingly overturns the table to vent his anger. Bastian just thinks this person is hopeless. He signals Lovis to get Dissen out, and also asks him to contact Sabine's boutique and schedule an appointment, as he wants to order several dresses. 2 days later, Odette receives another invitation from Bastian. The letter has no unnecessary words, simply stating the time and place to meet. Odette is puzzled why he doesn't write clearly what they're going to do. At the same time, Bastian is receiving a follow-up examination from a doctor for the gunshot wound in his left arm. Dr. Kramer tells him he has basically recovered to a state where he can go to war, but as his attending physician since childhood, he doesn't want to see him get injured again, and suggests he retire. But Bastian stubbornly refuses him, because he needs to climb up through military achievements to achieve his goals. Dr. Kramer looks at him with pity. He knows that although Bastian is the Empire's youngest military hero, he has a tragic past. To legitimately eliminate the eldest son left by his deceased first wife, Jeff Clawitz, under the guise of training in air, arranged extremely cruel training for Bastian. Thus, he could successfully attribute all of Bastian's injuries, and even death during air training, to his own carelessness. Accidentally falling from a horse and nearly breaking his neck, accidentally being wounded all over by wild beasts, accidentally being cut by swords. The clever adults never leave any evidence of deliberate harm on him. It wasn't until he was taken back by the Elise family that he received proper treatment. Although his grandfather dotes on Bastian greatly, his purpose is also to cultivate Bastian as a tool for avenging his dead daughter. Dr. Kramer sometimes regrets whether he shouldn't have revealed the truth that Bastian's mother was murdered. In that case, Bastian's grandfather wouldn't have harbored such great resentment, and those unrealized revenge plans wouldn't have fallen on Bastian. On the other side, Odette has arrived at the agreed location. Then Bastian brings her to the most famous clothing store in the capital, Sabine's boutique. Store manager Hilda personally comes out to greet them. Odette follows behind Bastian in confusion, watching them exchange pleasantries. Then Hilda indicates for her to come over, as she needs to take her measurements. Odette is surprised that Bastian brought her here to buy her dresses. She quickly says there seems to be some misunderstanding. Before she can finish, Bastian interrupts her. He smiles and apologizes to Hilda, and asks asks her to excuse them for a moment. After she leaves, Odette scolds him for arranging such things without her permission, which is too impolite. But Bastian just tells her very calmly that it's hard to get an appointment at this clothing store. Odette angrily says, "Don't you understand yet? No matter what kind of place this is, I don't need you to buy me clothes by forcibly giving me gifts I don't want in this way." Hearing this, Bastian suddenly turns to look at her. "You think I'm doing this to give you gifts? Don't you know your nickname in social circles? It's the beggar princess. Since you've now become my fiancé, if you don't even have a decent dress, it would only make me feel embarrassed. I don't care about gentlemanly dignity and reputation, but I don't want people to think I'm stingy. After all, money is to me what you take pride in, your noble bloodline. I hope you can cooperate." Feeling insulted, Odette darkens her expression as she begins to fight back. "I'm sorry. I also don't like the nickname that social circles maliciously use to belittle you, but I haven't shown it, so I hope you can also be considerate of me." But Bastian actively recites his own nickname, the grandson of a junk dealer. His expression doesn't show displeasure at her words, but remains calm. "This is something I can't change, unless I'm reborn. But you're different. Let's solve problems that can be solved." In the end, Odette gives in. Although it's her first time ordering a high-end dress, she shows no awkwardness. Even Hilda is charmed by her grace. After taking measurements, Hilda excitedly tells Odette that the store has a dress that would suit her perfectly. Then she hurries off to get the dress. She doesn't realize that Odette wearing only a thin slip feels a bit cold. Hearing a light cough from the fitting room, Bastian guesses she's gotten cold. Then he notices a blanket on the table. The next moment, Odette hears Bastian outside saying, "I brought you a blanket. The staff seems a bit busy." She's startled and feels awkward as she tries to explain that she's not properly dressed right now. But Bastian has already anticipated what she wants to say. "Don't worry, I'll turn my head away." Odette pauses for a moment and extends her hand to lift the curtain slightly. Indeed, as he said, he has turned his head away without looking. She quickly grabs the blanket from his hand and thanks him. His sudden kindness makes her a bit uneasy, wondering if her coughing annoyed him. Hilda, who witnesses this scene from afar, looks at their intimate behavior with satisfaction. She can see right through Bastian's heart. After all, nothing proves a man's feelings better than his willingness to spend money on a woman. After ending the day's shopping, packages large and small are loaded onto the carriage. Odette inexplicably feels that Bastian's expression carries a subtle hint of pleasure, but she only wants to complain that he spent several years' worth of a commoner's living expenses in one afternoon. Before bidding farewell to Odette, Bastian doesn't forget to kindly remind her that it would be inappropriate if Duke Dyson saw these things, suggesting she store them at Countess Trier's mansion first. Odette was planning to do exactly that. After their brief conversation ends, Bastian turns and leaves directly. Odette looks at the carriage full of gifts with mixed feelings. Although Bastian said it was for his own dignity, regardless of what he says, even though she originally didn't want to accept these things, they were all bought for her. Thinking of this, she politely thanks him, "Captain. Thank you." Bastian stops upon hearing her thanks. He turns back to meet her gaze. For a long time, neither of them speaks again. On the way back, Odette still lingers in his mind. He unconsciously reveals a smile. As soon as he returns to the mansion, Lovis approaches him with a panicked expression. "Master, you're finally back. It's terrible that Princess Isabel secretly came to see you." The next moment, Isabel, dressed as a maid, runs over joyfully and hugs Bastian tightly. But Bastian only looks at her coldly. To see him, Isabel, who was confined to a separate palace by the emperor, even drugged a maid, and escaped by wearing her clothes, deceiving everyone after great hardship because she wants to tell him, "Bastian, I can give up my princess status for you." However, faced with her madness, Bastian only wants to quickly distance himself from her. "The Imperial Guard will find you soon. Please leave my mansion before they arrive." Isabel, who still can't see reality clearly at this point, even complains about her princess status. "Is it because of the disparity in our positions that you're unwilling to admit your feelings?" Seeing such a thoughtless woman, Bastian thinks of Odette, who, even when humiliated, tried her best to maintain dignity. But Isabel clearly possesses everything yet doesn't know how to cherish it. He strides forward, ruthlessly and completely destroying all her false fantasies. "Your Highness, any patience and care I've ever shown you has only been because you are His Majesty's daughter." Isabel looks up in disbelief. She's met with merciless words. "So you must thank your father well, Your Highness." Isabel's heart is nearly shattered. She clearly sacrificed so much for Bastian, even willing to defy her parents' wishes to abandon everything to be with him. Yet at this time, the door is banged loudly. It seems the Imperial Guard arrived faster than he expected. Isabel collapses powerlessly to the ground. "Please, Bastian, don't treat me this way." But Bastian walks directly to open the door. "Your Highness, all I can ever give you is a soldier's loyalty to the royal family." Isabel looks up desperately. As the the door opens. The guard captain appears before her. "Your Highness, you're indeed here." Bastian calmly explains that Princess Isabel appeared at his house as soon as he returned. He doesn't know what happened either, but since the guards have come, he can step aside now. But the guard captain stops him from leaving. "You must also come with us. Captain Clawitz, His Majesty commands you to enter the palace immediately." At this time, on the other side, Odette returns home. She tells Tira that she found a good job. Maybe soon. They can go to the warm south to find a small town where they can see the sea and start a new life. And if she has income, she won't need to act with Bastian for the pension anymore. However, just when Odette thinks life is taking a turn for the better, she receives bad news from Tira. A guest just came, which seems to be about money. Father told that person that Clawitz would help him solve everything. Realizing her father knows about her and Bastian's affair, Odette can't sit still. She grabs her cloak and turns to go out. She needs to find Bastian right now to apologize. Little does she know that Bastian has already been taken to the palace due to Princess Isabel's involvement, and he is currently bearing the Empress's enormous fury. The Empress indiscriminately blames this superficially attractive but lowly man for bewitching her daughter. "How dares you toy with the royal family? Bastian Clawitz, don't expect to leave the palace alive tonight." Under the Emperor's persuasion, the Empress angrily leaves. Faced with such an outrageous daughter, the Emperor has a severe headache. After the investigation, although he learned that Bastian had no connection to Isabel's escape, he discovered something else. Beyond the marriage arranged by the royal family, this ambitious man Bastian has also been frequently meeting with Duke Lavier's daughter. So at this moment, the Emperor asks him directly, besides Princess Isabel, Duke Lavier's daughter, and Odette, "Bastian Clawitz, do you have any other women?" Bastian doesn't panic at his sudden questioning, but instead bows respectfully. "Your Majesty, please give your orders. Whatever command you give, I will obey." The Emperor outwardly praises him as truly worthy of being called a hero, but he knows deep down that he is definitely not the type to submit to authority and institutions. He can tell from his eyes. Those are the eyes of a fierce beast that would bite even its master. So, what kind of shackles should he use to tame him? Thinking this, the Emperor speaks coldly. "I know you have no feelings for Isabel, but no matter what, she and the royal family's reputation have indeed been damaged because of you. Her marriage alliance absolutely cannot have any problems. I won't beat around the bush with you. Clawitz Bastian, please get married immediately." To be honest, if I were ruthless enough, the hero Bastian's corpse could appear in a dark alley the next day. But considering the military achievements you've made for the Empire, I don't want to be so merciless. I need you to complete the wedding within 2 months. Although I chose Odette as your wife, it doesn't matter now. Even if you elope with Countess Renard tonight, I can understand you. So hurry up and let us see the Clawitz couple. Only in this way will Isabel's future husband not feel displeased because of you. You just need to maintain a perfect marriage for 2 years as promised, and whether it's power or title, I'll give you whatever you want. Bastian Clawitz, do you understand my order? Meanwhile, Odette indeed doesn't see Bastian. As soon as she returns home, she hears the sound of arguing coming from inside the house. She can't help show evident fatigue in her face. How much she wants to escape this suffocating place, but she cannot escape. She hurries upstairs and sees her father snatch the private savings from Tira's hands. Facing his pestering daughter, Dissen backhands her with a direct slap. Odette cries out Tira's name. Tira staggers. Anger makes her lose her reason. She suddenly reaches out to push her father. With a lurch, Dissen falls from upstairs, along with the sound of gold coins scattering. Dissen falls heavily down the stairs. His head suffers a severe impact, and blood stains the floor red. The next day, at the hospital, Tira cries inconsolably, not because of her father's injuries, but because she fears she will be arrested for intentional assault. Odette calmly comforts her, explaining that their father was so drunk last night that he can't remember what happened, and now he thinks he accidentally stepped back and fell. Tira, so forget about this incident. It was just an accident. Despite this, Tira remains extremely panicked. What if someone else in the hallway saw it? Feeling helpless, she even wants to turn herself into the police. Faced with her sister who has lost her reason due to fear, Odette sternly declares, "Tira, listen to me carefully. What you did was just self-defense. No one will throw you in prison. Even if someone does, then I will go in your place." As her sister, Odette will do everything in her power to take responsibility for Tira. At this moment, Tira breaks down and cries. Odette holds her tightly, giving her comfort. Meanwhile, Bastian, who has mortgaged his marriage to the Emperor for 2 years in exchange for corresponding power, is now troubled by the decision of who should be the bride. Time is extremely tight. He needs to determine the bride candidate within 3 days. As long as there's enough compensation, there should be plenty of women willing. But after thinking it over, he still feels that Odette is the most suitable candidate. He decides to meet with Odette as soon as possible. At this time, Lovis hands him a letter from Countess Trier. The letter describes Odette's recent situation. Duke Dissen fell from upstairs due to drunkenness. He has a serious head injury and a broken spine, and it seemed like he has to live as a paraplegic for the rest of his life. And Odette is keeping vigil by her father. Days of exhaustion have made her face frighteningly pale. Thanks to Countess Trier's help, she finally gets a moment to breathe. Right now, Odette is filled with despair. She thought her life was finally taking a turn for for the better. Now it has all come to nothing because of her father's paralysis. There couldn't be a worse life than this. Suddenly, a figure slowly approaches. I've already heard about your father's accident. Hearing the voice, Odette looks up and discovers the person is Bastian, but his true purpose for coming here isn't to offer condolences, but to discuss marriage with her, because due to the Emperor's orders, he urgently needs a wife who can maintain a 2-year contract marriage relationship. I'm sorry to hear this bad news, you must be very sad, but I hope you can spare some time for me. Then he hands her a contract. I think you are the most suitable candidate so far. In exchange, I will pay you enough compensation, and the wedding must be held in 20 days. As his words fall, the already haggard Odette feels deeply humiliated. So now you're buying a wife with money? Bastian doesn't deny it. I think under the current circumstances, it should be a mutually beneficial contract. You can also view it as me giving you a 2-year job. Odette looks at the clearly structured contract in her hands and suddenly feels dizzy and uncomfortable. She staggers and falls onto the bench. You're really quite the philanthropist, suddenly coming to the hospital to offer me a job. Bastian doesn't get angry at her sarcasm, still maintaining calm. I just want to complete His Majesty's order within the specified deadline. Lady Odette, although you are my first choice, I can also choose someone else. However, I think it wouldn't be a bad thing for you. After marriage, you won't have to sacrifice your entire life caring for your paralyzed father. This isn't a real marriage in the true sense. We just need to show a perfect couple in public. Other times, we can live our separate lives like strangers. Odette takes his suggestion to heart. She gradually calms down. As long as she signs this contract, her father will be sent to a high-end nursing home to spend the rest of his life, and Tira can also receive the best education. Moreover, she also can obtain a generous compensation to start a new life after 2 years. It is indeed the best choice for her, but she still can't help asking, is the deal with His Majesty really necessary enough to make you spare no expense like this? Bastian doesn't answer. Then please give me one more day to consider. However, Bastian doesn't have the patience to wait. He hands her a pen asking her to make a decision. If you want to refuse, I will also respect your choice. Hearing this, Odette no longer hesitates. She quickly grabs the pen. She tells herself this is indeed a mutually beneficial cooperation, no different from what she's done before. No matter what happens during these 2 years, it won't be worse than the current situation. She uses her trembling hand to persist in making the final stroke on the paper. After finishing, she can no longer support herself. Exhausted physically and mentally, she almost faints to the ground. Fortunately, Bastian catches her in time. He lifts her up and strides toward the hospital. Looking at the enduring and strong girl in his arms, a barely perceptible trace of pity flashes in his eyes. His arms holding her also unconsciously tighten. She is an exhausted patient. I need to take her to Dr. Kramer's room, but the nurse refuses because Dr. Kramer doesn't see ordinary patients as the director. Bastian coldly tells her to inform Dr. Kramer. Just tell him she is Bastian Klauvitz's fiancée. More than a month later, Countess Trier sighs that this is the first time she's seen such a hastily prepared wedding. Odette sincerely thanks her for her help. Indeed, for the past month she's been fighting battles every day. Bastian demands that his things must be the most expensive and luxurious, so their wedding supplies are all the most expensive in the Empire. Even their bridal chamber is a newly built summer villa. Such grandeur makes even the well-traveled Countess Trier tease. It seems your fiancé is wealthier than the world imagines. Odette can only smile awkwardly. In a few days after the wedding ceremony, she will really have to leave home and become alone. A few days later, in the Imperial Chapel, the wedding begins. Odette wears her wedding dress with dignified elegance. Under the priest's witness, she and Bastian exchange vows. Then Bastian lifts her veil. Odette looks up at the man before her, struck by the cruel irony of fate. She never expected that after being lost as a bet, she would actually marry that night's winner. Bastian slowly closes the distance between them and presses his lips to hers. By the time the ceremony ends, it's already dusk. They look thoughtfully toward the distance. Bastian suddenly asks if she likes it. Odette doesn't understand whether he means the sunset or the wedding. I mean, what do you think of this house? After all, you'll be staying here during our 2-year agreement. Seeing her confused expression, Bastian explains he has already moved his home here, so they will live here from now on. But since it is a bit far from where he currently works, recently he will only come back on weekends. Getting this answer, Odette is instantly delighted. So during this time, she and Bastian only need to spend weekends together. It is really the best news for her. She perks up and happily tells her cooperation partner, "Don't worry, during this period I won't cause any trouble. If there are any other things to pay attention to, just tell me." Bastian has never seen her so happy. Is it simply because she doesn't have to stay with him every day? Thinking of this, he can't help but find it somewhat amusing. After collecting his thoughts, he responds indifferently, "Just don't let your family members enter here. Of course, the same goes for my family members." Odette is startled, wanting to ask more, but Bastian notices interested gazes from outside the door. He wraps his arm around her waist, pretending intimacy. "All right, the banquet is starting. Smile. Don't forget that until the wedding ends, you should look like a bride happier than anyone else." Odette follows his steps, but she still asks him one more question. "If we harmoniously spend these 2 years, then what reason will we use for divorce?" Bastian pauses, not directly directly answering her question, but instead asks what she hopes it would be. As soon as the marriage news is announced, people label Odette with unsavory tags. Even the maids in the mansion gossip behind her back. They even tacitly assume she is pregnant before marriage. But even so, Odette doesn't care about these words. She even self-mockingly jokes that they don't need to hide. She won't be swayed by rumors because time will prove everything. At that night, Odette is preparing to sleep when the door is suddenly pushed open without warning. Bastian walks in with a slightly weary stride. Odette immediately panics. The contract clearly states we only need to play a couple in public places. What do you mean by entering my room now? Bastian wants to explain that she has misunderstood him. However, before he can finish, Odette urgently continues, I thought you would prepare a separate room for me. Faced with her loud questioning, Bastian falls silent. He strides toward Odette and holds her in his arms, only to meet her unyielding eyes. Finally, he gives up explaining, and directly proves with action. He walks toward the wall and gently pushes. Then they enter a secret passage. At the end is another room. Then he turns to explain to Odette that due to the many servants in the mansion, to avoid suspicion, they still need to appear to live in the same room on the surface, but secretly she can live here. Realizing that she has wrongly accused him, Odette blushes embarrassedly. Having said this, Bastian doesn't stay long. He says goodnight and leaves. But behind the door, his heart is inexplicably stirred by some inappropriate feelings. After laughing at himself for overthinking, he heads to his own room. Later, Bastian's business is thriving, and as his wife, Odette also becomes busier. Since their marriage, various banquets and invitations have been endless. Both busy with their own affairs, they only meet on weekends. However, even if Odette doesn't want his return, in front of all the servants, her surface performance never falters. Bastian is the same. In front of others, they perfectly portray the loving relationship of newlyweds reuniting. Seeing their master pull his wife into the room as soon as he comes home, the maids all blush and praise their love. Who would have thought that once the door closes? Bastian immediately darkens his expression. I've sent you so much jewelry. It can't be that only this one satisfies you. Odette is stunned for a moment before explaining her behavior. She says even if they're attending a banquet later, this won't be inappropriate. Besides, her outfit today isn't suitable for overly flashy jewelry, but her calm defense only makes his anger worse. Don't you know what kind of people tonight's banquet guests are? They are all my colleagues. They were also present when the gambling incident happened. So you should clearly let them see that your situation has changed dramatically after marriage. You are no longer that daughter who was used as a bet by her father. Now you are my wife. He is certain that no matter what this marriage truly she is now his wife. So he will make her the most beautiful and glamorous woman in the world for the next 2 years, so that no one can find any trace of that once despised beggar princess in her. At this moment, he completely doesn't realize that his actions exceed his usual rationality. He ignores his own hidden selfishness and possessiveness toward Odette. But at this banquet, an inappropriate woman appears. To see Bastian, Sandrine comes to the banquet as her cousin Lucas's companion. In such an occasion, even if Sandrine has ulterior motives, Bastian won't embarrass her in public. Knowing Sandrine's feelings for Bastian, Odette shows no anger. Welcome you, Countess Renard. Hearing the voice, Sandrine turns around, but her gaze is attracted by the huge and sparkling gemstone necklace around Odette's neck. Even though she knows Bastian isn't stingy, this gemstone necklace is too excessive. Extreme flames burn fiercely in her heart. She even suspects this is something that poor beggar princess begged from Bastian. Little does she know, Odette feels completely indifferent about this necklace. If not for Bastian's insistence before the banquet, she still thinks that simple necklace would be better. The banquet officially begins. Guests politely praise how well-matched Odette and Bastian are. Odette is initially uneasy, but after interacting with everyone, she feels they seem to have no ill intentions. Suddenly, Lovis informs Bastian that someone is calling. Bastian has to excuse himself temporarily. As soon as he leaves, the atmosphere at the banquet suddenly becomes quiet. Eric suddenly asks Odette about Duke Disson. I heard your father was seriously injured. Is he doing well now? Odette is stunned. Though she doesn't understand why he would suddenly bring this up, she still answers politely. However, Eric suddenly sneers. Anyway, you owe everything you have now to Duke Disson. If not for what he did that night, you probably wouldn't be enjoying such a luxurious life now. The atmosphere becomes extremely awkward for a moment. The nobles all watch with a theatrical attitude, waiting for Odette's response. Lucas wants to persuade Eric to stop, but Sandrine beside them is delighted. It seems there's some fun story we don't know about. We're all dying to know. Odette can clearly sense that man's contempt for her. Perhaps he just wants to see her cover up the scandal hurriedly. That's why he teasingly says such things. Precisely because of this, she can't let anyone with such thoughts get their wish. She answers very frankly, that's right, my father was indeed addicted to gambling, and even used me as a bet when he didn't have enough money. That night was also the first time I met all the officers present. Bastian was the winner of that gambling game. As a soldier who values honor, he safely sent me home in a military manner. Of course, he could do that thanks to your support, so I'm still very grateful for your magnanimity that day. Her words both coherently explain everything and give face to everyone present. Eric is rendered speechless. He didn't expect her to take the initiative. This way he naturally has nothing more to say. At this time, Sandrine suddenly claps with a smile. How romantic. But if someone else had won that night, wouldn't you not be Mrs. Clawitz now? Sandrine looks at Odette. She very much anticipates how Odette will continue to smooth things over next. Odette is about to respond when a hand suddenly presses on her shoulder. Bastian protectively replies, no matter who won at that time, the result wouldn't change, since I would take her back. In front of them, he kisses Odette. Seeing this, the nobles present all change their previously aggressive attitude, praising how romantic they are. Only Sandrine's face darkens. Overwhelming jealousy makes her unable to maintain even basic noble decorum. But Odette's heart knows too clearly, even though she is Bastian's wife in name. In Sandrine's view, she will always be that unsuitable interloper. Noticing her dejection, Bastian gently holds her hand to comfort her. After the banquet ends, Sandrine very rudely expresses to Odette that she wants to tour the house, and presumptuously criticizes the decorations here. Then she pushes open the master bedroom door without permission, acting as if she's the master of this place. She even uses a commanding tone to demand Odette arrange this place according to her preferences. I think the interior decoration could choose gorgeous landscape paintings for decoration. You should understand what I mean, right? Her increasingly presumptuous behavior makes Odette unable to bear it. Even if she's just Bastian's contract wife, Sandrine is going too far. Countess, you are a guest. Please act accordingly. Sandrine reveals a smug yet hypocritical smile. I'll pay attention in front of guests. After all, it wouldn't be good to embarrass Bastian because of you. But when we're alone, there's no need. After all, I'm not stupid enough to act politely in front of a 2-year contract worker. Odette can't believe Bastian would reveal their contract to Sandrine completely. Catching the stiffness on her face, Sandrine continues mockingly, you don't think no one else knows about your contract, do you? Playing the role of wife for too long inevitably creates some illusions. Odette, Bastian is just using you. But just in case, I must advise you, don't think about using pregnancy to occupy the position that belongs to me. That's the bottom line of what I can tolerate. At night, Odette sits at her dressing table pondering Sandrine's words. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door. Bastian in sleepwear enters the room. Odette panics for a moment because since their marriage, apart from the first time he brought her here, Bastian has never pushed open her door. She asks what he's coming here for now. However, after Bastian approaches a few steps, he suddenly stops, then turns around. Odette doesn't understand his behavior. Only when she inadvertently glances at herself in the mirror does she freeze. She forgot her nightgown is very thin. Knowing Bastian saw everything, she blushes and covers her collar, embarrassedly and shyly asking if he can turn his head away first. Bastian sighs lightly, then turns his head away. Odette frantically grabs her robe and wraps herself tightly, before appearing in front of him again. And his visit at night indeed has something to say to her, because he's quite dissatisfied with her performance at today's banquet. Odette, you've now married me. I'm a commoner, so you're also a commoner now. Thus your words and actions should match a commoner's status. If you continue to put on that arrogant attitude in front of nobles like tonight, you'll only face ridicule and oppression. I don't want to see you looking pitiful again. His accusation makes Odette feel very wronged. Being despised and mocked by others, she can still smile and deal with them as if nothing happened. Even being treated as a woman being sold as a bet, she endured it. If she hadn't put down her identity as a lady of the Disson family, she couldn't have persisted to the end at the banquet, and she's willing to endure all this only to fulfill her duty as his wife. She holds back her grievance and stubbornly explains, I merely handled the problem in my own way. This has nothing to do with my identity. Whether I'm a duke's daughter or a soldier's wife, Odette is Odette. Moreover, I think I fully maintain the dignity that the lady of the Clawitz house should have tonight. When playing your wife, I will follow your requirements, but now I am Odette, without any identity. Bastian is obviously very surprised. Her eloquent defense is indeed very much her style. For some reason, his slight dissatisfaction from earlier completely disappears, although she puzzles him. He has to admit that even so, she's still very beautiful. Seeing him suddenly approach, Odette becomes nervous. What are you trying to do? Bastian's gaze darkens as he looks at her. He suddenly doesn't want to maintain this false gentleman facade. No matter what, Odette has already become his wife. Even if they go further, what's wrong with that? But thinking that Odette will leave after 2 years, his reason ultimately overcomes impulse. He can't ignore the consequences that come with momentary desire, and he doesn't want to add another burden to Odette's already difficult life. Whether out of sympathy or pity, Bastian withdraws his superior attitude, perhaps wanting to make the unyielding Odette live more easily. He advises her, Odette, just remember one thing, rather an honorable loser. I want to be a heartless winner. Odette silently repeats this unfamiliar phrase, asking puzzled, even if it means losing dignity, that doesn't matter? To win no matter what, that is the dignity of a Clawitz. On the weekend, weekend because Bastian is busy with affairs and won't come to the villa, Odette also welcomes her relaxing time. She comes to the art gallery, thinking that as long as she finishes buying paintings according to Sandrine's preferences, she can freely arrange the remaining time. After selecting paintings according to Sandrine's taste, she's about to leave, when she's attracted by a unique painting in the corner. "Excuse me, can I buy this painting as well?" the receptionist explains with difficulty. Although this painting has no owner, a customer just took a fancy to it. Odette follows his gaze and discovers the buyer is actually Franz. Franz is obviously also very surprised to see her. He eagerly asks her reason for wanting to buy that painting. The reason? Of course, because I think it's beautiful. Franz immediately becomes excited. Unlike those who criticize this work as random scribbling, he discovers she actually shares his interests. Then, "May I ask what you like most about this work?" His excited reaction makes Odette pause for a moment. Before slowly responding, this painting displays the flow of light and air very dreamlike. Just like a dream. Hazy and wonderful. Franz's eyes widened in shock. "Odette, you buy this painting. Someday this painting's value will be recognized. I'm very happy to give it to someone who knows how to appreciate it. However, can you have tea with me?" Odette agrees to his invitation out of politeness, but she doesn't know this scene of their meeting is witnessed by Bastian. Seeing Odette and Franz chatting and laughing, his face completely darkens. He follows her to a bookstore, just as Odette is enjoying rare leisure time. Suddenly, someone knocks on her table. "Hello, may I sit here?" Without looking up, she refuses the stranger's advance. "Sorry, that's my husband's seat." Who would have thought the man across would directly pull out the chair and sit down? Odette is shocked, just about to scold his rudeness. When she looks up, she discovers it's actually Bastian. Bastian says he happened to pass by and saw her. "What about you? Why are you here? I don't seem to have received notice of your going out. It's my fault for not reporting my whereabouts to you. I received news that you won't return to the villa this weekend, so I thought to move up the schedule for selecting paintings at the gallery. Is that all?" Odette falls silent. She knows Bastian's relationship with his family isn't harmonious. If she mentions Franz now, it might backfire. And if she really wants to explain all this clearly, she'd have to mention her previous conversation with Sandrine. But she really doesn't want to tell him she's following Sandrine's demands one by one. "Yes, that's all. After buying the paintings, I came here." Her deliberate concealment makes Bastian feel irritated. He unconsciously adds some displeasure to his tone. "Why are you starting to act on your own again?" Odette doesn't understand why he's so angry. "Are you condemning me? I just went out once. Is this such a big mistake that I deserve this kind of humiliation from you? And I also adjusted my schedule according to your itinerary." Bastian stands up impatiently. "Don't you think our positions are equal? Remember, I am your husband and also your employer." His words are barbed, as if he's sulking because he can't get honest treatment from the other party. This weekend, Bastian and Odette receive an invitation from Marquis de Mel to his villa. After getting out of the car, Bastian reminds her to remember her duty as his wife today. Odette uses his own words to retort, "All right, I will do my utmost to become a heartless winner." At the banquet, Odette perfectly handles various social greetings. Late at night, she, who doesn't handle alcohol well, is still struggling to hold on. Bastian quietly observes her condition, and then notices her abnormality. He considerately takes the unfinished champagne from her hand, and signals that she can return to the guest room to rest first, while he continues socializing until late night before returning to the room. He thought Odette should already be asleep by this time, but when he pushes open the door, he finds it empty inside. When he's in confusion, he hears pleasant singing coming from the bathroom. He unconsciously follows the sound into the bathroom. The scene before his eyes makes him widen his eyes. Odette is lying by the edge of the bath, looking out the window. Seeing so beautiful and stunning scene, Bastian becomes momentarily mesmerized. At this time, Odette opens her eyes and turns her head to see Bastian standing not far away. When their eyes meet, both of them are very shocked. Just then, conversation sounds come from outside the door. Realizing there are people in the corridor, Bastian doesn't have time to think and rushes toward Odette, covering her mouth with his hand to stop her scream. Odette is confused by his sudden appearance. Bastian signals her to be quiet. After they leave, he hands her a bath towel and turns to leave. Odette behind him asks why he came here. Bastian forces seriousness to hide his inner turmoil. "This isn't just your room. Do you want me to tell the owner of this house that my wife and I are actually fake married? So please trouble you to give me another bedroom." Without waiting for her explanation, the usually calm him is inexplicably agitated today, striding toward her side. Odette's heart tightens, afraid he might do something again. When she's about to apologize, Bastian turns toward the window behind her, forcefully closing it, then angrily leaves the bathroom, irritably opening the bedroom window. But his mind once again conjures up the image of Odette from moments ago. His eyes grow increasingly deep. After a long while, he finally comes back to his senses, taking a long breath. He has to admit he's fallen for her and wants to possess her completely. After Odette finishes bathing, she struggles with her thoughts for a long time. Before quietly entering the bedroom, Bastian is already asleep at this time, looking at his peaceful sleeping face. Her expression suddenly becomes determined. She secretly resolves never to shed a tear for this contract contract marriage. She turns off the bedside lamp and silently walks out of the bedroom until dawn breaks. Bastian turns to look beside him, only to find it empty. Worried that Odette might have privately left the room and caused gossip, he hurriedly gets up, but on the living room sofa, he sees her curled up sleeping. He finds it absurd that she would rather squeeze on the narrow sofa than lie in the same bed with him. Bastian speechlessly adjusts the blanket he found somewhere for her. If he wakes her up now, she definitely won't obediently go sleep on the bed. He originally wants to carry her to the bed while she's asleep. When picked up, Odette senses his movement and wakes up startled. She suddenly realizes something is wrong. Not listen to his explanation, she struggles frantically, causing Bastian, who's holding her, to lose his balance. Wait, don't move around. He slips. And if not for him forcefully maintaining balance, he almost would have dropped her on the ground. Bastian is extremely annoyed, thinking whether being held by him is really so repulsive to her. He throws her back on the bed and presses down on her, his tone full of dissatisfaction. Odette, enough. Odette doesn't hide her hostility, demanding to know what he's trying to do. Bastian is hurt by her words, because Odette has always shown this resistant attitude toward him, but that day she showed Franz a brilliant smile, not knowing if it's from spite or other reasons. In front of her, he straightens up and removes his robe. Keep talking. What's wrong with me? Odette is both shy and nervous. Your current behavior isn't in our contract. However, before she can finish, Bastian directly and brazenly kisses her. Confusion flashes in Odette's eyes. Why are you kissing me? Don't you remember? I am your husband. She raises her voice, emphasizing the conditions they agreed on beforehand. However, Bastian at this moment deliberately sidesteps the issue. Odette, we're still guests at someone else's house. It isn't be proper for them to hear you speaking so loudly. Odette promptly stops. But Bastian doesn't intend to stop here. Even though she's still quietly pleading for mercy, he seems to have completely lost his reason. Just when she's about to give up, she suddenly recalls what Bastian said before, to win no matter what. She cups his face with both hands, softly saying, "Please, I beg you, please don't do this. I don't like this." Bastian has never seen her like this. Finally, he exhales and actually stops approaching, taking the blanket. He covers Odette on the sofa, then he turns his back and silently walks toward the bedroom, only leaving behind a quiet sentence. Odette, you won this time. The next morning, they continue attending the banquet. Men and women go separate ways, but Bastian is absent-minded along the way, even though he's socializing with others all along. Odette's figure always lingers in his mind. On the other side, Odette resting by the creek is the same, recalling Bastian's transgression this morning. She can't help but blush. With chaotic thoughts, she suddenly notices flowers by the shore, thinking the child of the Count would definitely love them. She takes off her high heels, lifts her skirt, and carefully walks into the creek wanting to pick that distinctive cluster of flowers. But unexpectedly, her necklace falls into the pond. She looks around hoping to find the necklace, finally discovering it by a stone several meters away. Just as she's about to walk over and get it, a figure directly walks into the creek and picks up the fallen necklace for her. Odette looks up in surprise. It's Bastian. They look at each other. Bastian is also surprised that after seeing her from afar, he unconsciously walked toward her. He slowly approaches Odette in the creek and puts the necklace that just fell into the water back on her. There are many eyes watching. Just go with it. Marquise de Mel, seeing this loving scene, shows a satisfied smile. Bastian looks at Odette. She's so quiet now, which makes him want to possess her completely even more. Anyway, she can't propose terminating the contract, because once she does, her life will become more miserable than before. Since that's the case, with his advantage in this contract marriage, can't they stop being so respectfully distant? Thinking of this, he can't wait to pull Odette into his embrace. A few days later, Odette waits outside the Admiralty as Bastian had invited for their lunch together. But she encounters Sandrine. Knowing full well that Odette is waiting here for Bastian, she pretentiously invites Odette to enter the Admiralty together. Odette suppresses her displeasure and politely declines. "No, I'll wait here. This is the place we promised to meet. Then have a great day, Countess Renard." Without waiting for Sandrine's response, she sits back down on the bench behind her. Her action instantly infuriates Sandrine. How surprising that a lady with imperial blood would be so rude. Since when can a mere officer's wife show such insubordination to a count's wife? Odette appears completely composed. "If I were the wife of Captain Bastian Clausewitz, and you were the wife of Count Renard, then I would have committed a grave offense. But our relationship seems different, doesn't it? Up until now, you don't seem to have regarded me as Bastian's true wife, but rather feel that position should belong to you. In that case, I'm the daughter of a duke with the blood of the imperial family. Why should I bow my head before you?" Sandrine is instantly struck speechless with surprise, but Odette's questioning continues. "Please tell me what exactly you want. If you wish me to be an officer's wife, then I will apologize for my behavior of offending a noblewoman. But if you want to play the role of Mrs. Clausewitz in front of me, then you'll have to get used to this kind of treatment, Countess Renard. So do you need me to stand up and apologize to you now?" Sandrine clenches her fists. Finally, she lowers her head. In that case, just continue sitting there reading your book. Odette doesn't even look up as she continues reading. Thank you for your understanding. Goodbye. Sandrine turns away angrily, but stops in her tracks just as she's about to leave. Odette, I hope you've prepared to read for a long time. There may be long wait than you thought. Later, in order to see Bastian, Sandrine attempts to force her way into the Admiralty, but Lucas hurriedly stops her. He tells her that Bastian received an urgent notice and had to go to the Imperial Palace with Marquise de Mel, but she still refuses to give up. Seeing the carriage sent by the palace to pick them up outside the window, she suddenly comes up with a good idea. Then, despite Lucas's attempts to stop her, she hurries toward the carriage. Marquise de Mel is quite surprised. Isn't this Countess Renard? What's wrong? You don't look well. I'm so sorry, Marquis de Mel. I came to have lunch with my cousin Lucas, but I suddenly felt unwell and was about to leave. She puts on a pitiful act, instantly making the gentlemanly Marquise de Mel unable to stand by and do nothing. Then why don't you come with us in the carriage? Although time is tight, on our way to the Imperial Palace, we can drop you off near Count Renard's estate. That would be so kind of you. Bastian, who witnesses the entire scene, says nothing. No one knows Sandrine's true intentions better than he does. Soon the carriage departs. Bastian also begins to worry about Odette, although he instructed his subordinate to deliver a note to her. If she were to witness the current situation, it would certainly cause unnecessary trouble. He silently prays. If only they could just pass by without incident. However, things don't go as hoped. The carriage passes by the road in front of Odette. She looks up and sees Bastian in the carriage, along with Sandrine, who is smiling smugly. Surprise and confusion flash across Odette's face, and Bastian catches it all. He's shocked that she, who has always been so indifferent and rational, would show such an expression, even though someone later delivers the note Bastian left behind. And Odette knows this carriage sent by the royal family was to pick him up for official business. However, whenever she thinks about Sandrine being inside as well, an inexplicable irritation wells up in her heart. After all, Sandrine is the woman who will replace her as Bastian's wife in 2 years. She asks herself that after experiencing countless blows from reality, hasn't she recognized the truth yet? She clearly knows that however much genuine feeling she invests now, the more painful it will be when she loses it in the future. Since she can never truly possess him, she shouldn't have fallen for him from the beginning. But why does she secretly anticipate his arrival? Meanwhile, after finishing his official duties, Bastian is still puzzled by Odette's expression of loss. She has always appeared rational to the point of being heartless from beginning to end, yet today she showed such a confusing expression. This makes him even more decisive about that decision. He will move back to their marital home within a week, which means he will be living day and night with Odette.